Another day, another recap. Today we'll be diving into an action thriller movie titled Night Hunter. Without further ado, enjoy the video. The movie kicks off with a young woman desperately making her way through the snowy woods, clearly fearing being caught again. Arriving at a bridge with her captor close behind, the woman lets go of herself off the bridge and lands on a lumber truck passing below. Amidst multiple missing persons reports of young women, Detective Walter Marshall visits his ex-wife, Angie, the next morning to pick up their daughter, Faye, for school. He catches them in the middle of a disagreement when Faye complains that her mother invaded her privacy by looking through her social media. Looking through everything with Faye, her father reminds her to be careful of the things she shares online and to always stay vigilant. Elsewhere, former Judge Michael Cooper's vigilante operation yields a successful result when he lures a predator to a hotel with Laura's help and then knocks him out just before he makes an advance. That evening, Walter investigates the case of the young woman's body found on the lumber truck. After speaking with his superior, Commissioner Harper, about the circumstances surrounding the case and the torture the victim endured, Walter fears a bigger problem at hand. Walking into the office of the Cyber Squad, he finds out that profiler and psychologist Rachel Chase is now a part of the team along with technicians Matthew and Glazo. Avoiding Rachel's questions about Angie, he asks if she could have someone look into a few people watching Faye's social media. Meanwhile, Laura waits outside the hotel room where Michael confronts the predator once he gains consciousness. Listing out the man's crimes, Michael gets him to sign away his savings to be distributed among the victims of his abuse, and then threatens him against making a police report. Working on the case the next morning, Walter correctly assesses that the woman was running away from her captor and must have jumped off the bridge to escape. Michael, on the other hand, gets Laura a pair of earrings with an embedded tracker so he can locate her as she traps their next target. Following the tracker later that evening leads him through the city in an intense car chase. However, he crashes into an oncoming car and is unable to continue his chase as he gets taken in for questioning. While Rachel investigates further, Matthew goes through Michael's several profiles and informs Walter that he seems to constantly be on the hunt for something. Commissioner Harper adds that having been a great judge for several criminal cases, Michael had later stepped down after his family was tragically slain. Walter, in the meantime, leads a team to the tracker's location. In the mansion, he cautiously moves through the seemingly silent place. As the jolly music blares in the background, he comes across a young woman held captive behind one of the many locked doors. Following movement on the opposite side, Walter comes across a man with a mental disability and knocks him out. He then finds not just Laura, but a group of people that was also trapped. At the hospital later, the prisoners all seem to not be able to hear properly. Rachel speaks to one such rescued victim, Julie, in an attempt to get more information about the captor. Outside, Michael is relieved to see that Laura escaped unharmed, and she angrily tells Walter the police are of no use. It was up to them to find and catch such sick people. At the station, their perpetrator, Simon Stulls, sits in the interrogation room when Walter barges into the room armed with evidence found in his basement. It seems that a custom pressurized air valve was used to cause damage to the woman's hearing. However, Simon fearfully pushes it away and even covers his ear. This leads Rachel to realize that he couldn't hear her, implying that it was used on him as well. The forensics, meanwhile, are ripping the house apart looking for any clues they can find. Walter gets to witness Julie's reunion with her father in the hospital, which makes him think of Faye. At home, he finds his dinner from last night waiting for him while Faye sleeps on the couch. Laura, at home, decides to unlock a room and sees one of Michael's family photographs and begins crying. Back at the station, Walter informs Rachel that the forensics team came across a lot of unidentified DNA at Simon's mansion, which meant that someone else had to be involved. As Walter heads home to Faye for the night and Michael spends time with Laura, a strange attack happens at Simon's mansion. Hit with a mysterious gas as they continue their investigations in the basement, 6 lives of the forensics team are claimed. Commissioner Harper has an aggressive reaction to the news, demanding immediate answers from Simon. This disturbs him and he begins to blabber repeatedly. At that moment, Rachel is reminded of a statement she took from one of the women they rescued. While locked up in his basement, she said she had experienced Simon's playful as well as angry nature, but she warned Rachel about his generally mean personality. The news jumps on the story, and Rachel asks Simon about the money they found, to which he says Santa Claus brought it. When asked about his mother, Simon replies that she is no more but insists that she loved him and gets angry when Rachel asks if she hurt him. Commissioner Harper says that Simon should just be taken to court in order to receive his punishment, even though Rachel thinks they need more time with him. The attack on the police force seemingly continues that night when technician Matthew loses his life in a car bombing. With Commissioner Harper's permission, Walter meets Simon in his cell and as a test places his loaded gun for him to easily grab. When Simon refuses to do anything but cower, Walter reports back to Harper that there had to be someone else targeting them. Rachel argues that Simon has other personalities that are fully capable of causing harm. Looking into Simon's mother, Amy, the team finds out that she survived an abduction at her place of work before getting pregnant with Simon and then passing away. Walter begins investigating the factory Amy used to work at, but as he silently goes around, there isn't much to check at the now abandoned factory. A few days later, Lara is back at work luring yet another predator when Walter joins the meeting to ask about Michael. After arresting the man Lara had trapped, Walter heads over to the library to meet Michael, who insists that Simon has to be getting help from the outside. Rachel and the other technician meet Lara at Michael's place in an attempt to gather some information on their work. Back at the library, Michael attempts to justify his actions by mentioning the high percentage of repeat offenders when the justice system releases them. Walter argues that it still is not the right way to do things. While leaving the library later, Walter acknowledges Michael's tragic pain of losing his family, but honestly adds that his guilt won't magically disappear just because he was giving out his version of justice. Following a few leads to a man named Lewis as the person responsible for the equipment found in the bombing that claimed Matthew's life, Walter later accompanies his team to a warehouse. While they are met with a few shots fired by Lewis, Walter manages to stop his attack. When the man is told who he sold his equipment to, he doesn't make it out of the factory alive. Meanwhile, attempting to get Simon talking, Rachel changes her appearance a bit to look like Amy. In the questioning room, she then unlocks his handcuffs and goes on to state that Amy didn't love him. Finally getting a reaction from him, Rachel learns that Amy always locked Simon up and never let him play. Simon then vaguely says that someone follows him everywhere and that he hates him, then suddenly attacks Rachel but is immediately stopped. A while later, Rachel receives a package with a note from Walter. Meanwhile, Glazo goes home to find his wife knocked out and his infant daughter missing. Reading the note, Rachel raises the alarm for a bomb threat at the police station, causing panic and evacuation. In the ensuing chaos, Glazo makes his way to Simon's cell and gets him out. Safely driven away from the police station, Simon happily hops out of Glazo's car and into another waiting vehicle. Back at the police station, when Rachel tells Walter that the package was sent by him, he rushes to it as the bomb squad opens it up to reveal that it was Glazo's daughter. A desperate Glazo gets there and is relieved to find his daughter completely fine. Overcome with emotions, Walter goes all the way to Angie's house and hugs Faye. They eventually end up having a heart-to-heart conversation about what her birth meant for him and his job and how things changed over time. Overhearing this conversation causes Angie to get emotional. Meanwhile, Rachel pores over Simon's case and looks through Amy's case papers for any detail they might have missed earlier. To ensure their safety, Walter sends Faye and Angie away with strict instructions to not use phones or laptops till he picks them up. The next morning, Walter accompanies Rachel to the Psychiatric Records Center for information on Amy. After finding Amy's tapes, the two then watch her sessions with the Child Protection Services. Realizing that Amy personally knew the father of her child, the team decides to find the guy to nab Simon. However, this proves to be a difficult task, as Amy's out-of-court settlement was done in cash and the guy's name is not reflected in the records or database anywhere. On Commissioner Harper's suggestion, the owner of the factory where Amy worked is found and revealed to be a man named David McGovern. To everyone's shock, this is the same man that Michael was in an accident with while he was following Lara's earring tracker. Following David's address to a prep school, the team arrives on location to find Simon having attacked his father. While David lies heavily injured, Simon is arrested even as he cries out for his toy. Seeing Rachel, Simon's stronger personality comes to the forefront and informs her that he is tired of Simon's endless crying. He further says that she should give him the toy he is asking for if she wants to hear the truth about all who were abducted. A shocked Rachel grabs the bear from David's hands and makes a deal with Simon to finally get the whole and honest truth from him. Safely cuffed in the investigation room, Simon is then shown photographs of all the victims. As Rachel calls out each name, he replies whether or not they still live. She grows visibly disturbed as the list goes on and most of the names are confirmed to have lost their lives. Meanwhile, Michael realizes that Lara is missing. Believing that Simon is involved, he rushes over to the police station. When Walter and Rachel go to Simon's cell to ask him about Lara, he confirms that while she is still breathing, her time is running out. Later that day, Michael closely follows Simon's police transport to the courthouse. While Rachel accompanies Simon, Walter is back at the station observing his previous questioning sessions. Just as he recognizes the possibility of Simon actually being two different people and rushes out, Michael crashes into the police vehicle, causing an accident. He quickly drags Simon out and demands to know where he took Lara. As Rachel barely gains consciousness, she sees someone aim a gun from behind Michael and take a shot. It is then revealed that Simon has an identical twin who switched places with him when he was arrested again after attacking their father. In a show of crazed teamwork, the twin ends Michael's life even as Simon tries to get Rachel out of the car. When Walter finally gets there, the twins are long gone, having kidnapped Rachel. However, because of a tracker in Simon's toy bear, Walter is able to find the whereabouts of the twins and heads there with express permission from Commissioner Harper to end their lives. Even as the police follow the tracker, the twins place the barely conscious Lara and Rachel on an icy lake, and go on to inhumanly fling objects set on fire in their direction. They cheer wildly as Rachel's foot sets on fire and Lara tries to help her. When Walter and his team arrive on the scene, the twins run into the woods surrounding the lake. Rachel and Lara carefully cross the thin ice of the lake to safety. When Walter asks them both to stay there, Rachel disagrees. Handing over his gun to her for safety, he then follows the twins into the woods. As both Walter and Rachel are separated in their hunt for the twins, Rachel is attacked by Simon's twin and Walter finds Simon on his own. Rachel puts up a good fight but ends up overpowered until they hear Simon's voice from across the lake. Having captured Simon, Walter uses him to lure his twin out, who eventually brings Rachel over to the lake and threatens her life by shooting at the ice around her. In return for Simon's life, Walter makes a deal with his twin for Rachel's safety. Walter then gets Simon to hug his twin. However, the moment Simon walks over to him, his twin shoots at Walter. The twins end up falling through the ice into the lake and eventually drown, leaving only an injured Walter on the surface of the frozen lake. In Michael's last letter to Lara, he expresses his gratitude for her presence in his life, and a few days later, Walter visits Faye accompanied by Rachel, implying the start of a new relationship. He even introduces her to Faye as someone who saved his life. Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe and like, and I'll catch you on the next one.